What's up everybody, welcome back to my channel, Morgan Allena True Crime and Mystery. Guys, Gypsy Rose was gonna be on 60 Minutes Australia and I watched the segment, and let me just tell you, be prepared to be disappointed once again by the media. So many missed opportunities to call Gypsy Rose out for the lies and the continuing scams and grifting that she did with her mother before she eliminated her from the face of the earth. Honestly, it's just, I don't understand it. I don't know if they just don't get the documents or they don't release the medical records to the people that are actually interviewing Gypsy Rose or what, but they actually had a Munchausen syndrome by proxy expert on this show to definitely drive home the fact that Gypsy was 100% a victim and using her story as a story of hope for other people that may be in similar situations like Gypsy. Except we all know that that is 100% a fabricated story. None of the stuff that Gypsy Rose says happened in that way. But, you know, of course, they're not ever going to hit her with the hard questions and bring the facts right to her face and really question on her lies and the stories that she brings up that are just 100% not true. But not to worry, if you guys were wanting to watch it, I've got it for you. Pretty much the only interesting part that I honestly saw throughout the whole thing was when Ken was like cooking for Gypsy and the interviewer, and he was acting like he was on an episode of Chopped on the Food Network because he was going so hard. It was like, I think he was really trying to show off that he's a good cook, but you know, it was a little bit intense for the moment. But other than that, I was pretty much disappointed throughout the entire thing. Ken was definitely not chill whatsoever. He was like, but yeah, let's go ahead and get into that whole segment of 60 Minutes Australia with Gypsy Rose. She took her lies and her scam internationally. This has got to be a new level for a professional scammer like Gypsy Rose Blanchard and her family. It's really incredibly disappointing the fact that she has this team now that is essentially building up her lies and carrying out her scam legacy. She's creating like a dynasty of lies. It is unbelievable, but I'm gonna go through everything that you need to see. Before we do, make sure to like this video and hit the subscribe button if you are not already. And I want to say thank you very, very much to Wendy Williams for gifting me a super thanks on my last video. Thank you, Wendy, as always. I appreciate you more than you know. But yeah, let's get into Gypsy Rose Blanchard International Lies on 60 Minutes Australia. And of course, just a disclaimer, I can only do so much as far as putting in clips. I've got to edit them a certain way, so I never know what I'll actually end up in the final cut of the video, because I don't know what we'll actually like get through without, you know, getting flagged or whatever. So I'll try to get as much of it in there as possible for you guys.
Unlikely to meet anyone sweeter than Gypsy Rose Blanchard. She really is charming, but she's also a convicted murderer. With help from a boyfriend she met online, she killed her very own mother.
Coming up, I had sleep apnea when I was just a baby.
She thought she was the sickest little girl in the world.
Graduated to a seizure disorder, muscular dystrophy, to leukemia.
But it was all a lie.
She controlled everything in my life.
Made up by her cruel mother.
She was particularly manipulative.
So Gypsy Rose took drastic action. Whose plan was it to kill your mother? And certainly nothing like her own mother, who, while pretending to be loving and caring...
And what about your mum? Did she like dressing you up and...
She did.
Was anything but. So evil, in fact, Gypsy has just spent 8.5 years in jail for murdering her.
Breaking news this morning, 48-year-old D.D. Blanchard is found dead inside her home. Her 19-year-old daughter Gypsy is still considered missing.
This is an ongoing investigation. And I want to start off with saying, things are not always as they appear.
I wasn't born evil. I wasn't born a murderer. My circumstances took me there, and that was my path.
What's funny is in the first 2 minutes of this episode, Gypsy is already telling lies. For one, she knows that she was never actively diagnosed with leukemia at any point, and she knows that her mother never told doctors that either. If you watched my last video, you know I touched on this, but the only time leukemia was really ever brought up in the medical records was at the dentist, and at that point they said that Gypsy had been in remission since the age of 5 years old. So there was no reason for Gypsy to ever suspect that she had cancer as she was getting older, and she's well aware of that because that's why she never told Nicholas Godejohn that she had cancer. She never brought that up to the police during the interrogation. She said, I have medical issues. She never said, I'm a cancer patient, I have cancer. She said she has seizures and things like that, but she never one time acted or lived her life as if she was actively dying from cancer. And of course, there would be zero reason for her to do that because her mother never told anybody that she actually had cancer, especially a doctor. It was always in remission, in remission, in remission. She knows that. And Gypsy contradicts herself in her own book whenever Gypsy said in the book that her mother liked to dress her up as a boy. Very androgynous, totally not feminine at all, which we obviously know that's not the case. We can see all her outfits. She never one time dressed up like a boy ever, unless she was dressing up as some like Star Wars character. But other than that, she really never dressed like what is like a typical boy. She never did that. She was even in beauty pageants. We all know that. We've seen the videos of Gypsy and Dee Dee, fluffing up Gypsy's hair and getting her all prettified for the pageant, for Gypsy to walk across and do her little thing, her wave. She was relatively young. But we know that Dee Dee did like to dress Gypsy up, but that contradicts Gypsy's own statements in her book. So when somebody constantly contradicts themselves, they're not an honest person.
I wasn't born evil. I wasn't born a murderer. My circumstances took me there, and that was my path.
It's a tale with all the twists and turns of a Hollywood thriller. A sweet little girl plagued by relentless and serious illness. Gypsy was raised by a seemingly doting single mum, who was in fact a monster.
She was particularly manipulative and convincing.
Isolated and abused, for decades, Gypsy slipped through the cracks of America's healthcare system. Until, she says, she had no choice but to end her mother's life. Are you a victim or a murderer?
I'm both victim and perpetrator.
Whenever they ask her, are you a victim or a murderer, she refuses to identify as a murderer. She has said that multiple times, and that is why she sits there and says, I'm a victim and a perpetrator. She will never purposely carry that title of a murderer, although she is literally the reason that Dee Dee is no longer alive. She cannot accept the fact that she is a murderer, both legally. She pled guilty to second-degree murder. That makes her a murderer, but she doesn't want to acknowledge it, and that is the reason why Gypsy should never have been released on parole. She lied to the parole board, sitting there saying that she acknowledged what she did and she'll have to carry it for the rest of her life. But what she carries with her is a state of denial. It is a inability to accept what she's done as for what it really was, which was a murder. She planned the murder for years. She wants to act like it was just one day and she snapped. Maybe that was the first time she tried to kill Dee Dee with the BB gun. But the second time, no, that was a multiple-year plan that took a lot of convincing and a lot of plotting and scheming on Gypsy's side. She had to do a lot of effort and put in a lot of work to finally get Nicholas to a place where he could finally fully believe that Gypsy had to be saved. This was not a moment of snapping, and she knows that. That is why she will never identify as a murderer, and someone that can acknowledge their crimes should not be free.
I'm both victim and perpetrator.
Do these photos bring back happy memories, or are they upsetting to you?
They were the simple times in life.
Yeah.
I say when things were good.
Yeah.
So.
She smiles back on the memories that she has as a young child, but at that point she said the abuse had already began, but she looks back on those memories as happy memories, and she says that the abuse really didn't start until they got to Missouri. That is when her mother, kicked it up a notch, according to Gypsy's own words. That's what she said on this recent episode of Life After Lockup. But at that point, Gypsy was getting to be 14, 15 years old, and at that age, you're well enough aware what's going on, and she was fully complicit in the scam.
Right from birth, 3 months old, Dee Dee was telling me that she had sleep apnea, which, until this day, I don't know if that was real or not. And it escalated from then. Problems with her eyes, hearing, her digestive system. After that, Gypsy couldn't walk anymore. She had a muscular disorder.
Dee Dee confined Gypsy to a wheelchair, even when it was just the two of them at home, and fed her daughter medications which gave her horrible side effects, mimicking the symptoms of various illnesses.
There was a long list of medical illnesses that my mom told the doctors that I had, ranging from muscular dystrophy to leukemia, hearing impaired, vision impaired, anything that could be wrong with someone, honestly.
And you believed her?
I did believe her because I grew up that way. So she started telling the doctors that I had sleep apnea when I was just a baby. And then it graduated to a seizure disorder. And she kept building on that list of things. So by the end of it all, there was not a single part of my body that didn't have something supposedly wrong with it.
By the age of 8, Gypsy was a regular patient.
They're so goofy that they literally attach a photo of her during a sleep study, and during these studies that they're actually running the test that actually came back abnormal, yet Gypsy still portrays this as coming back completely normal, and Dee Dee's somehow managing to convince the doctors that in spite of normal tests, to continue with procedures that are unnecessary. That's 1000% not the case, and we all can, like, that's why people can't grasp, like, how could this happen? Because it literally didn't happen. It did not happen. The way that they tell you that it happened, not possible. That's why it's so hard to believe that this happened to Gypsy, because it literally didn't. She knows that, the family knows that, the attorney knows that, and it's unreal that these reporters, these investigators, they won't ask hard questions. They won't really push back on the narrative that she literally created out of thin air as a defense to her crime. She never one time brought up medical abuse to the police. One time. She only brought up the fact that she couldn't be with Nicholas Godejohn. She was a little bit controlling. How she describes her mother as overprotective, not abusive. And there's a reason for that, because Dee Dee was not abusive to Gypsy in that way. She did not medically abuse Gypsy. And again, they fail to acknowledge the chromosome microdeletion that Gypsy has, totally bypassing that during the entire segment, never one time bringing up the fact that that is literally linked to every single procedure and issue that Gypsy Rose had. Knowing that she admits it now, she put out the video. Maybe I did have a seizure disorder, maybe I didn't. Yeah, you probably did. You know, regardless, you know that everything that was wrong with you and those medications that were listed, a lot of them were related to gastrointestinal problems, like your Zantac, like your lactulose and stuff for constipation. That was all related to stuff that was necessary for you because you had failure to thrive. You can't just make up failure to thrive. But they really want to act like Gypsy was completely starving. You should see the amount of, I'm going to attach a photo of the amounts of Pediasure that Dee Dee had at that house for Gypsy. Maintain that she was getting adequate nutrition. An absurd amount of Pediasure because Gypsy liked that flavor, so Dee Dee went above and beyond to get an exorbitant amount of it to make sure that Gypsy always had it any time that she needed it.
Professor Beatrice Yorker is one of America's leading experts in child abuse. She says Dee Dee Blanchard had a severe case of Munchausen syndrome by proxy.
Munchausen syndrome is a condition where somebody makes themselves ill for the purposes of getting medical attention. When it's Munchausen syndrome by proxy or Munchausen by proxy abuse, instead of making yourself sick, you make your child sick or a dependent in your care sick for the purposes of getting medical attention.
Why would any mother do this?
They do it because they are getting their needs for attention. Their needs to be in a nurturing hospital environment. Their need to be seen as a caring, wonderful mother, doing everything for their child that has special needs or is dying or has some horrible condition. And they bask in it, and they have a compulsive need to get that kind of attention.
And in this case, financial reward as well.
Exactly.
The sweet little sick girl captured the hearts and pity of Americans. Gypsy and Dee Dee were given cash from charities, trips to Disney World, even a new home.
It's beautiful, and it's happy, and it's full of love.
But experiences that seemed charming in childhood lost their shine by her early 20s. When Gypsy discovered the internet and the world she was missing out on. It was here at New Orleans Children's Hospital where Gypsy spent so much of her childhood undergoing dozens of medical procedures which she now knows were unnecessary. Her mother Dee Dee would bring Gypsy here with an endless list of problems and symptoms, the seemingly doting parent insisting her child needed treatment. And if suspicions were raised or questions asked, Dee Dee would quickly move hospitals, even cities. Over the years, Gypsy was treated by at least 150
Doctors and medical specialists. At what stage or age did you realise that it was a farce?
I knew that I could walk. I knew that I could eat, so I didn't need the feeding tube. But the other things like cancer, you can't see that. So I had believed that I had cancer up until the time that I was arrested.
What's amazing to me is that this leading expert in child abuse fails to even try to investigate any of the medical records that Gypsy Rose Blanchard had. Had she read those records, she would know that there was a lot of things that were abnormal with Gypsy. So how would you explain that? All these tests that were run that you can't fake, like a sleep study, you can't fake a sleep study. They literally know whether somebody is awake or not. That's the whole point of it. They can tell. You can't fake things like that. You can't fake a biopsy. And then other than that, the tubes in the eyes, that was all clearly very necessary. Having tubes put in the ear as a child is totally normal, and it is unique to Gypsy's chromosome microdeletion. Chronic ear infections that Gypsy had is a symptom of this chromosome microdeletion, and Gypsy's fully aware of that. She's literally making up that part about the cancer because, again, it is literally clearly stated within the medical records that it was only ever said that Gypsy had cancer at the age of 5. So she's lying to not only the interviewer, but to the faces of everyone watching this interview by saying that she thought she had cancer up until the day she spoke to her attorney. She literally was present for every single visit, so how could she not know what Dee Dee is telling the doctors? It's a lie. It is a farce. That is why she never told Nicholas Godejohn that she had cancer. But she did tell Nick that somebody had cancer, and that was Dee Dee. She told Nicholas Godejohn that Dee Dee was dying from cancer, and so that he would be helping her out anyway. That's also documented in trial in the records.
The question so many people want to know, why didn't you get up and walk? Tell someone, run away, tell a doctor. I don't think people understand the emotional hold that an abuser has on their victims. So, asking me that is the same as putting me in a category of saying, well, domestic violence survivors, why didn't they just leave their abusive husbands?
Trapped and desperate, what Gypsy did next stunned the community and police, propelling her to fame as one of America's most notorious criminals.
She answers the question about why didn't she just stand up so incredibly defensively, and with the attitude and the shaking of the head. And I think she's been reading a lot of the comments on Instagram where people are defending her, because that analogy that she just used is something that I've seen so many times in the comments. People saying, oh, you wouldn't say that to a DV victim or whatever. It's the same thing. And she's been reading these comments of people that are defending her that honestly have no idea what the actual story is, and using their words in order to further her lies and to help, confuse people. She was not in a battered woman situation where she was continually beat down. And even then, in a lot of situations, those people do make a lot of plans to escape. They do make attempts. I mean, Gypsy made one attempt to go meet a guy. Never one single attempt to try to go meet the police, or whenever they were there at her house, literally interviewing her, she didn't say anything. She never one time asked Nick, who she had free range to talk to for years, to contact help or to get her out some way. There was never any single effort to attempt to run away instead of murdering Dee Dee in her sleep.
Ken Urker could easily have his own cooking show.
Makes some simple but pretty good, healthy dishes for an expecting mother.
But the 31-year-old seems content playing a supporting role to fiancée and convicted killer Gypsy Rose Blanchard. The pair met while Gypsy was behind bars. Ken was a pen pal, and now they're preparing to welcome their first child.
I mean, I want to be there for her and for my daughter as much as possible, so really...
It's a happy, relaxed home, a striking contrast to Gypsy's upbringing and path to parenthood.
I wonder how Ken feels about that, playing a supporting role to convicted killer Gypsy Rose while he's, on his last stretch of Iron Chef, chopping up his parsley or whatever for his food, being a supportive husband to a murderer. Gotta love it. I bet he really enjoyed that. He really was doing the most, I think, in this little segment that he was involved in. It was kind of just too much. Calm down, dude. Let's just chill out. Okay, let's just bring it down a notch.
By the time Gypsy was 23, she had had enough.
So at what point did you make that decision that killing your mother was the only way that you could be free? I had tried to exhaust all the options that I thought was available to me. It's a sign of the desperation. I think you were such a, seemingly sweet young woman with having lived a very sheltered life. Exactly. That's where your mind went. Exactly. Because it's not like I had a criminal record. It's not that I had a history of violence or anything like that.
Been running with the wrong crowd?
No running with the wrong crowd. It was...
In fact, you had no friends.
I didn't have any friends. I wasn't allowed to. So she controlled everything in my life.
She sits there and says she didn't have a history of violence, like she didn't already attempt to kill her mother before. So when she says she exhausted all the options, that means attempted murder before the actual murder. Oh, guess we exhausted all our options. Tried to kill her, didn't work out all the way, so I'll just get somebody else to do it. That's exactly what she did. She didn't try to actually run away. According to her, multiple different variations of her story, she left a note for her mother. She left her cell phone there for her mother. She did all these things the one time that she tried to run away to Dan, and of course stealing her mother's pills because she thought Dan was into that. And then stealing a bunch of money to give to Dan. She didn't even pack anything, with literally no attempts to actually be gone. So what is she talking about? Exhausted all her options. She didn't tell CPS. She didn't call the police ever. She didn't even look up how to get help. All that time that she spent on the internet, never one time thought about looking for help. One time? No, but she did make sure to look up serial killers. That's funny. And go talk to random dudes on the internet and strip her clothes off. She made sure to do that. That's exhausting her options? No, it's not. She didn't exhaust any options except for murder.
And fondling himself in a McDonald's restaurant for 9 hours.
Nicholas Godejohn was 26, autistic, and willing to kill in order to be with Gypsy.
I guess she's your girlfriend, Gypsy. Yes. Do you love her? Oh, do I love her?
Over the next 3 years, the couple hatched an horrific but unsophisticated plan to end Gypsy's torment. On the night
So this screenshot from Gypsy Rose Blanchard's Facebook profile, Nicholas Godejohn and I had a fight, and I felt like we were coming apart. We met in October of last year and have been together ever since. We have always felt a magnetic pull towards each other, and our love for each other might even be a little unhealthy because both he and I have lost sleep, staying up all night talking or crying our eyes out when we fight. We would die, kill, do anything for each other, but he is the only person I've told all my secrets to. He knows my hopes, dreams, and wishes, and he makes me feel alive. Some would say, you're too young to know what real love is, but they are wrong. Look at her spelling. Remember when I always point this out. Look at her spelling. All those messages from Dee Dee to Christy was Gypsy. I will literally never not bring that up. And if Gypsy had no friends and had no contacts, then who would be saying that they don't know what real love is? Perhaps Dee Dee, because she knew about the relationship and was telling Gypsy to chill a little bit, like a typical parent probably would, like, girl, chill. You don't even know the guy?
of June 9, 2015, Nicholas Godejohn travelled from his home state of Wisconsin to Gypsy and Dee Dee's home in Missouri.
I was with my mom in our Habitat for Humanity home. We watched a movie, and then we went to sleep, and then it happened.
Do you remember your last words with her?
I did go to the kitchen, and I gave her a hug, and I told her I love you. And I remember holding a pillow that she slept with, like, every night, and crying into it, and apologizing to this pillow as if it were her, and just saying, I'm so sorry, and I love you, and just taking in the scent of the pillow. Because in a sense, it's like saying goodbye.
Gypsy waited till her mother fell asleep, then let Nicholas in to do the deadly deed. And when she was killed, where were you?
I was in the bathroom.
Could you hear her?
I could. And in that moment, like, I wanted to help her. Like, the thoughts in my head was, I want to help, but I was almost paralyzed in my own skin to move.
Did you instruct him to stab her 17 times?
No, I did not.
To nearly decapitate her?
No, I did not.
Gypsy is strikingly calm, almost detached, as she recalls the horrific events that would land her boyfriend in jail for life. I have to say, I've spent a couple of days with you now. You don't strike me as someone who's capable of planning a murder.
Well, I mean, my situation was very centered around my circumstances. So I can honestly say I would have never committed that crime had I not been pushed to the brink where I really just snapped.
It's so funny how she never mentions the same story that she did in one of her first documentaries, Mommy, Dead and Dearest. Or maybe it was another one where she said, why are you hugging me so much? I'm not dead yet. Or I'm getting sleepy now. Don't hurt me. She never mentions that again for some reason. I don't really know why. But now all of a sudden she's changed it to some strange pillow story. That's so weird, isn't it?
Guilty.
The court finds that there is a factual basis for a plea of guilty.
In fact, life with her mother was so unbearable that for Gypsy, prison felt like a holiday.
That was the most freedom I had ever had. I was like, I can have a job now, and, I was one of those people that's like, yeah, I'm excited to have a job.
And eat normal food?
Eat normal food, like, this is...
So this is independence that you had not experienced?
Exactly, it's a newfound independence.
She was released 8.5 years into her 10-year sentence and remains on parole. But life after lockup has been far from normal.
And again, they're totally bypassing the fact that this murder was planned for years. How are you not going to ask her one time about the fact that this was a multiple years worth of planning and pushing Nicholas Godejohn to do this? She really just sits there and says, I snapped. Snapped. For years? That doesn't even make any sense. She's really gonna sit there and just say it was just out of the blue. This is the problem, this is the lie, this is somebody that cannot admit or acknowledge their crime, and it's disgusting that 60 Minutes Australia is perpetuating a lie and a scam, and they are complicit in a fraud amongst the American people and now the Australian people, because you're spreading lies for a murderer that can't even say what she did. She's a perpetrator. She's a murderer. That's what she is. It's honestly sad we let her out. It is so sad she did not get life in prison, because she will never have any sort of remorse whatsoever.
That was the most freedom I had ever had. I was like, I can have a job now, and I was one of those people that's like, yeah, I'm excited to have a job.
And eat normal food?
Eat normal food, like this is...
So this is the independence that you had not experienced?
Exactly, it's a newfound independence.
And she'll sit there and say, yay, I was excited to have a job, but she's been out and she's not had a job. She's too famous to work at Walmart, remember? She's too famous to have a normal job because of this crap right here. She's too famous to have any sort of normal anything. We should not be giving this person a platform that cannot even acknowledge what she did. It is shameful. It is literally a shame, and it is a horrible thing, and our justice system failed.
10 refuse to let the past dictate their future.
We definitely did go off the rails. We got tattoos and we got pregnant with them.
They're starting over, determined to create a safe and happy home for their baby girl. What would you like childhood to be like for your daughter?
Honestly, I would just want my children and my child to have a childhood that I never had.
Yeah.
So, growing up, I missed out on all those milestone moments, going to kindergarten and, a prom and all these different things that kids experience. I didn't fears of becoming a mother. I never did. I just will say that my will to be a better mother than what my mother was is so strong that I'm not going to continue the cycle.
I think that Gypsy recognizes that she does not want to be the way her mother was. With no voice, Gypsy is telling her story in her own words, but she knows the toughest conversation is still ahead of her. How do you plan to tell your daughter your story and what happened to her grandmother?
I knew from day one that this conversation would have to happen with my kids someday. And that's why my book is so important, because this book is my legacy. And I will always be honest with her. Ken and I both will sit her down, have a conversation surrounded by family, and we will let her know what happened.
Do you feel that you've done the time for your crime?
I really, really struggle with that. They could give me 10 years in prison, but that's not going to stop the guilt and the regret and the remorse and the nightmares and the stigma that I have to live the rest of my life with. So in a sense, I have a life sentence. I'm just living it in a much bigger prison.
She did go to kindergarten. She knows that. So why is she lying about that? She did get to be in Girl Scouts. She did get to do all these things. She did get to be in Star Wars Club. She was in Vacation Bible School. She was in a lot of things. She got to go to Disney World multiple times as an adult, stealing from actual sick, dying children. She went to Cape Cod. She went on multiple flights. She met the cast of Harry Potter. She met Miranda Lambert. She met Blake Shelton. She met multiple celebrities. Good luck, Gypsy, giving your kids the life you never had, because most kids don't have the life you had. Are we being so for real right now? That I cannot deal with this. This is so problematic that we are giving this person a platform to influence not only our generation, but our children. Hey, you can do whatever you want and get away with it, and you'll become a celebrity for it. Because bad behavior is now being rewarded with TV shows, fame, and fortune. It's despicable. And you don't even gotta admit what you did. You don't even gotta say it. You murder someone, so what? You're just a perpetrator. No, I don't think so. She is exactly the way her mother was. She is a scammer. She lies to the faces of the public in order for free stuff, free gifts, free trips. Gypsy still gets the same things that she got when her mother was alive. She just doesn't have to pretend to be a sick child. She just has to pretend to be a victim of Munchausen syndrome by proxy now. Now she's not a victim of, circumstance and unfortunately an illness. She just has to be a victim of her mother, and she gets to continue the scam, continue the fraud, and continue the con and reap all the benefits that she was the same way that she did right alongside her mother. They ran a con together, then she took her partner out of the deal, and then now she's running it solo with the other side of the family. They've all been in on it, they all benefit from it, and they're all guilty. It's disgusting that we give this person the opportunity to have this platform. She should have been banned from social media because she committed the crime on social media. She hired a hit on social media. She should not be allowed to have access to social media whatsoever for the rest of her life as a condition of her release. This girl has lied and continues to lie, and somebody has to stand up to it. Somebody has got to do something about this and prove her for the liar that she is. And then she gives a shameless plug for her book so that way she can benefit even more, and then wants to message people and say, oh, well, I was so busy I didn't have time to actually read the book on my life story, so yeah, my ghostwriter's got some details wrong and it's gonna be changed in the reprint because it's full of lies and contradictions to everything that she's ever said. But you want to pass that down to your children, a book of lies? She is a pathological liar. She will never ever tell the truth. She will never change because she is a sociopathic individual. She may not have been born evil, but she definitely is evil now. And anyone that is around her is at risk for God knows what. She has not changed. She cannot change. She doesn't see any wrong in what she did. She feels 1000% justified, and she doesn't even view herself as a killer. That is incredibly disturbing. That is so wrong that we let somebody out like this. And so Gypsy finishes by saying that she has to live her life in a much bigger prison. So let's take a look at some of the images of Gypsy Rose actively in prison. Oh, trip to LA, horror. And you know what? Out of all of that, she seems more upset by the stigma of being a murderer. She hates that. She hates that she carries around the stigma for being what she literally is, a murderer. Because again, there's no murder without Gypsy Rose. There's no murder. She attempted to murder Dee Dee once, and then she got Nick to do it the second time after years of manipulation and brainwashing. They casually leave out the fact that he was on permanent disability because of his autism. They casually leave out all the times he said no. He didn't want to do it. She forced him to do it. She forced him to be happy about it. She manipulated his mind and played games with him because all he wanted was love. Casually forgetting that. But yeah, Gypsy has to live her life in prison while getting hundreds of thousands of dollars for her show, for her book. Shame on you, 60 Minutes Australia. Shame on you. Shame on you to the Blanchard family. Shame on you to all of you guys that support this person, that uplift somebody that literally is still scamming the same way that she was with her mother. Shame on you. It's despicable. She should have never been released. It is like honestly a failure of our justice system. A huge failure. And unfortunately, our justice system doesn't like to admit when they're wrong. So we have to just sit by and watch her get away with this until somebody with a big enough platform is able to make a difference and gets the truth out there and calls out what really happened, and that Dee Dee Blanchard's life was cruelly taken, and she continues to spread lies for financial gain. If you guys watched this, let me know what you guys think about this or this video. I think we should, let 60 Minutes Australia know what we think about this. I think it's disgusting and it's pathetic that they fail to do any sort of research or investigation or actually, verification of any of the claims that Gypsy Rose made. At what point will it stop? It never will until somebody stands up for it. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. As always, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and hit the subscribe button if you are not already to support me and my channel. Thank you guys to each of you that have helped me and my channel and given me super thanks and everything that you've done. Please be sure to share this video on other platforms if you can. I look forward to seeing y'all in the comments. I always do. I will see you guys next time. Bye.